What is up, Broncos country? Today was a big, big freaking day. I hope all you guys are doing well. I'm sure you are. Muhammad, we're back in, he's back in town. We're finally back. It's been a bad couple of weeks for us. He's been out of town. We've both been kind of under the weather. I did a few pods last week by myself, but I was actually sick during those, so I didn't really make them go too long. But today we feel amazing. All of Broncos country should feel amazing. The Broncos have clinched the playoffs for the first time in 9 years. Muhammad, your instant gut reaction to the game and to the Broncos making the playoffs.
Where to start, Eddie? I mean, it's like I was saying before the show. It's just surreal, Eddie, that we're actually at this point. I mean, outstanding performance by the Broncos. You know, um, we put a clinic out there. I mean, I know it was against the backups, but I don't care. We beat the Chiefs. We shut them out at home. I mean, I really don't care if it was against them or not. But we're going to the playoffs. I mean, it's crazy, Eddie. Like where we started on the draft, number 12 overall, picking up, Bo Nix, and everybody saying he should have went on the second round and saying all these negative things. The Broncos only going to win 5 games. For us to get to this point, winning 10 games and going to the playoffs after 9 years, it's unreal. The expectations, all the odds were against us, really. With the roster. Um, but we still did it. Bonix, I mean, incredible. Did I see this happening? Not really, Eddie. I mean, he's a rookie, but oh my God, I mean, it's just amazing. Um, the way they played today, disturbing the football to Mims, Sutton, Ville, the running backs. I mean, it was a complete game, I would say. The defense not letting them score not even 1.0. They scored zero. So I mean, what can I say, Eddie? I'm glad we're going back to the playoffs, and I think we put the NFL on notice because we're coming. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, we're coming. The Chargers, the Raiders, we're coming. We're here to stay. They better start getting used to it because we're gonna be going to the playoffs every season from now on. Let's go Broncos.
I'm freaking ecstatic, man. Like I don't even know what to say. It's been 9 long, excruciating years of, quarterback carousels, coaching carousels, just coming up shy. I mean, the last winning season we even had was 2016. The last time we made the playoffs was 2015. Um, it's just been a whirlwind of emotions. Like we've had our highs, of course, games like last year we beat the Chiefs for the first time in 8 years. You know, big games from a couple years back when we demolished the Dallas Cowboys in their house. But we've also had a lot of lows too, where, the coaching carousel, the quarterback carousel, oh, Drew Lock's the guy, Trevor Simeon, Nathaniel Hackett, Vic Fangio, and 2 years ago, if you would have told me that this team, like at the end of the 2022 season, if you had told me this team was, going to be in the playoffs in a couple of years and found their franchise guy, I would have probably said you were nuts
Yeah.
with how broken this franchise was. We just fired Nathaniel Hackett like on, the day after Christmas in 2022. We're in this Russell Wilson contract. Everybody was talking like, oh, no one's going to want to come here and coach. Who's going to want to coach a washed up Russell Wilson? Can't get out of his contract until like 2026 or 2027. And they have no draft picks. And then they're like, no one's going to want to coach here. The only people that are going to want to coach here is like a first time head coach that's going to be in way over his head, not know what to do. And it's a disaster job, and then we hired Sean Payton. And, at the time, my two choices, like the two biggest choices for Broncos country at that time were Jim Harbaugh or Sean Payton. And honestly, I was leaning more towards Sean Payton only because of the Super Bowl he already had. You know, Personally, to me, I think he has more experience developing young quarterbacks and getting the best out of quarterbacks than I think Jim Harbaugh did. I'm not saying Jim Harbaugh is a bad coach, but you get what I'm saying there. And Sean Payton took a New Orleans Saints team that was called the Aints. People coming to the games wearing brown paper bags on their heads because they were that bad. Had them in the playoffs in their, I think, his first or second year with a quarterback that people want to talk about. Oh, Drew Brees made Sean Payton. If it wasn't for Brees, Sean Payton never would have had. Are you serious? No one wanted that Drew Brees. Yeah, he was young, but no one wanted him. Whether they didn't think he was the kind of a good quarterback, like let's be honest, Drew Brees was a short quarterback, and short quarterbacks, even especially back then, people were like, "Are you nuts taking a short quarterback?" No. And then the fact that he had the injury that he had, no one thought Drew Brees was going to turn into what he did. That was, and you know what? I'm not going to sit here and say that was all Sean Payton. Those two needed each other. Sean Payton and Drew Brees needed each other. But if I had to guess, I think, if Sean Payton doesn't take a chance on Drew Brees doesn't turn into what he is. Maybe Sean Payton still, maybe he goes out and he finds his quarterback in the draft, back in the 2000s and builds him. But I, Drew Brees doesn't become Drew Brees without Sean Payton. And then within 3 years, had that team winning a Super Bowl. Sean Payton, 2 years in, has got rid of one of the worst, pretty much moved on from one of the worst trades in NFL history. I'd say Deshaun's watching trade was probably still worse because they literally can't get out of that contract at all. Takes an $85 million dead cap hit, goes out. You said it yourself, Mom, but drafts a quarterback that no one thought was going to do anything. Everybody was like, "Oh, Sean Payton reached on Bo Nix." No one, even some Bronco fans were like, "What the heck are we doing? We should have took Brock Bowers with the 12th overall pick." And within 2 years, Sean Payton gets rid of Russell Wilson, gets his guy, and has got this team with the biggest dead cap in NFL history with a rookie quarterback in the playoffs. Mind you, it's the 7th seed, but who gives a damn? This team was by Vegas only estimated to win 5.5 games. We surpassed that by a lot. We doubled that win total this year with the rookie quarterback, with not a whole lot of talent on the roster. People could say you could say Benito, you could say Sertan, you could say maybe Sutton and Bo Nix, but you don't have a tight end one. You don't have an RB one. Yeah, you got one of the top offenses in the league, but it's kind of hard to win when you got a rookie quarterback in Vele, who's your third, receiver, who was a 7th-round pick, is 26 years old. Marvin Mims, who everybody was kind of writing off before the season even started, and then Cortland Sutton, who really hasn't had that season in a while, with no running back or tight end. Sean Payton is a freaking football genius, in my opinion.
I agree
He
100%.
took two franchises back from one franchise. He pretty much raised them from the dead. Like they've been dead. They've always been dead. It wasn't like the Saints were great at one point, like the Broncos, and then sucked for years, and then Sean Payton brought them back. They were literally he created Frankenstein out of the Saints. Pretty much made a life from nothing with the Saints, and then with the Broncos, he took a dead franchise and brought them back to life. I don't even know what to say. Like, I understand, like, today was a dominating win. Now, people are going to talk about, oh, it was against the Chiefs backups. Don't be like, who gives a crap? Those guys get paid just as, like everybody else. A lot of those guys are second stringers that probably won't be on the Chiefs looking for a job. They're out there trying to play too, to, earn a next paycheck or to make the next team they want to be on. Like, they're football players too. And someone actually said something earlier. I was watching a post-game show of the game, and they were talking about it. It's like Andy Reid's probably going off on his team right now, on his backups. It's like he knew that Andy Reid knew they were probably going to lose today. They were playing their backups against the Broncos stars. He knew they were probably going to lose. But the fact they didn't score a single freaking point, Andy Reid's probably going off on him right now, and I wouldn't blame him. You might be backups, but you should at least get something. You're still football players. But man, I'm excited. I'm ecstatic. Granted, yes, and before we get into this, I'm not picking my, picks for next week's game. We'll do that later in the week. But a lot of people talking about, oh, we're going up to Buffalo, not just Bronco fans, everybody in general. Oh, the Broncos are going to get steamrolled against Buffalo. Didn't you all say that last year when we went up there to play Buffalo with Russell Wilson? Oh, the Broncos ain't going to beat Buffalo. Buffalo's going to destroy them. We went up there and beat them. Now, I'm not saying the Broncos are going to 100% win. I don't know yet. I got to look at the stats. I got to look at, the rosters, of course. I got to look at, the injury reports coming up this week for the Broncos and the Bills and go from there. It's not out of the realm of possibility to say the Broncos could possibly win next week. And Mohammed, just to throw this out there to you, if the Broncos somehow miraculously do win next week, guess who they play in the divisional round the week after?
Is it the Chiefs?
The Chiefs in Kansas City. Could you imagine if this Broncos team has a 7 seed? I said I'm not predicting it's going to happen, but I'm not making my picks yet. But imagine the Broncos go into Buffalo in the wild card, beat Buffalo, go into Kansas City divisional round, beat the top 2 freaking seeds, and eliminate them from the playoffs.
I'd lose my mind.
Like the national media's head would explode if that happened. And don't forget, that's how the Broncos, I'm pretty sure the 98 Broncos won their first Super Bowl. They were the final seed in the playoffs that year, and they went on a tear and made the Super Bowl against the Packers that nobody picked them to win, and they won. I'm not saying that's going to happen this year. I'm not picking them. I'm just saying wild things can happen. So I'm just saying, just don't take the Broncos out of it yet. But here in the second round, we'll get into the stats of the game, all the stats from the game, and I want to talk about Bo Nix's stats and some other things. But first, we got our first comment here from Michael Pack. He says, "I feel awesome, very proud of Bo and the rest of the team. They didn't go out and win ugly. It was a thing of beauty. Yes, it was. Like I said, yeah, I was against the backups, but it doesn't matter. Those guys are getting paid too. They're football players too. And I guarantee you, Andy Reid is probably tearing into him for at least not scoring. They had a chance to at least get 3.
Yeah, field
they
goal.
missed it. And I guarantee you, Andy Reid's probably losing his mind. What are your thoughts about Michael's comment, Mohammed?
Absolutely. I mean, didn't think the game was going to go like that. I mean, I knew the Broncos going to come out, on fire because of last week, and knowing that they have to win. And that's how they played. They handled business. I'm proud of the guys. Backups or not, hey, a win is a win against the Chiefs, and the defense helped them to 0. Hey, love that.
And let's not forget, yeah, Carson Wentz, he's still in the league. He hasn't been the starter in quite some time. But let's not forget, Carson Wentz at one point in 2017 was considered to be an MVP candidate before he got hurt.
Exactly.
Like, I'm not saying Carson Wentz is a starter type quarterback, but let's not pretend that Carson Wentz ain't a solid quarterback. I mean, yeah, he might be a backup, but he should have scored something. A touchdown, a field goal, something.
Yeah.
And man, it was just the beauty of a game. Like even against backups, Mohammed, games like this, blowouts like this, or games where the team doesn't score a single point, like those games are rare, even with backups in there, man. Like I said, those guys are still NFL players. They still get paid money too. They still go out there. They have a job to do. The fact that the Broncos held them to 0 points, like that's why I'm saying Andy Reid's got to be going off on them. Like they're still football players. That's unacceptable.
But Eddie, they say that did not happen to the Chiefs. They haven't been shut out at home. I mean,
they have not been shut out since 2012 before Andy Reid got there. Andy Reid's first season.
Exactly. So
I don't care. Like they're a division rival. I hate the Chiefs more than anything. I hate them more than the Raiders. Like most Bronco fans hate the Raiders more. I hate the Chief fans more because we know I grew up in Missouri. But I'm happy to get the win, and we steamrolled them. But we got another comment coming in here from Michael Pack here. His next comment, let's get it up here. He's like, let's remember, we went to Buffalo and beat the Bills last year. I won't hang my head. We're in. I'm not saying that, Michael. I just said right before that, like, I don't understand why people are saying that either. Like they were saying that, about us last year when we went up to Buffalo to beat the Bills. They were saying that last year when we played the Chiefs and we beat them. Like it doesn't matter how good of a team you are. Any given Sunday, a team that has a worse roster or is considered worse than the other team can always beat the better team. It can happen any Sunday. Like I said, I'm not giving out my prediction yet. I haven't really, like I said, I got to look at the stats. I got to look at the injury reports for both teams, and that's probably not going to be released until later in the week. And we have to figure, I don't even know what day the game's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be a Saturday game or a Sunday game. They haven't released the playoff schedule yet. But I'm not denying that, Mike. I'm pretty sure Muhammad won't either. Like we did walk up there last year and we beat the
Yeah.
Bills in their house.
Any given
Anything's possible.
Sunday. Exactly. I mean,
So I'm not saying that by any stretch of the imagination. I could the Broncos beat the Bills? I believe they can. It also depends on what Broncos team shows up too. Like if it's the Broncos team that showed up like against the Chargers a few weeks ago, probably not. Where Vance Joseph's constantly playing zone
I was about
and
to say that, Eddie. That's
getting burned. And Sean Payton, I understand we ain't got a whole lot of great running backs, but if you got to run the ball, you have to. Against those Bengals, even the Chargers a few weeks ago, we were running the ball relatively well, and then Sean Payton goes away from it. And I'm like, why? So, but we got another comment here from Michael. He says, Bo better than Russ. Well, yeah, I could have told you that one. I've been watching. Muhammad, I want to get your opinion on this in a second. I've been watching since yesterday, since the Steelers lost to the Bengals, I believe it was. I've been watching Steelers, podcasts, like just Steelers stuff, just to see. I just like watching the reactions. And one of my favorites, his name's Chisel the Donist. He does like, game commentary for recaps every week for the entire NFL, but he's a Steelers fan. All Steeler fans are saying this team's a joke. Who cares if we're in the freaking playoffs? He's like, we're going to get bounced in the first round. He's like, Russell Wilson's garbage.
Who are
He's
they
taking
playing?
he's hanging on to the ball too long again. And I remember watching one Steelers fan yesterday saying, Bronco fans, sorry we bagged you earlier in the year. I understand now why you guys got rid of Russ. He's garbage. It's like, we tried to tell you guys. What are your thoughts on this, Muhammad?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I said that he needed to retire and just save whatever legacy he got. No reason to embarrass. I mean, I'm surprised the Steelers won as many games as they did. It's probably their defense and just the way their coach have everything set up. But Russ is Russ, man. I mean, he's gonna keep doing Russ things, right? I mean, getting sacked and just not seeing their wide receivers. Just I don't miss those days, Eddie. I'm glad we got Bo Nix.
Nope.
Yeah, that just
You'll get the occasional nice moon ball down the sideline where the guy will catch it, and that's about it.
I just got some flashbacks when I start talking about him. Seriously, like
I know that. I was watching the game yesterday too. I was watching the Bengals and Pittsburgh game because I was rooting for Pittsburgh and Russ because like I don't want to back in the playoffs either. The Broncos needed to take care of their business today, but I just wanted the Bengals just to be eliminated and just that way we didn't have to worry about them. At that point, if the Bengals would have lost yesterday, the only other team we would have had to worry about would have had been the Miami Dolphins, and they lost today too to the Jets. So, but we got another one here from Michael. Everybody thought we had a generic team, and we were dead last in the league in most analytics. Nick Wright, for one. Yeah. I prefer to call him Nick Wrong personally, but that's something I wanted to get into here in a minute, actually. But yeah, Nick Wright is so terrified. Like, I don't even hear him talk about the Chargers this way. Like, I remember watching him a few years ago, and he said he was like, he hates the Broncos more than any other team in the division because he said whenever he was a kid, he would watch the Broncos kick the shit out of his Chiefs every week back in like the 90s and 2000s. So, I mean, it's kind of like me with the Chiefs, growing up in Missouri, him growing up there, and the Broncos always kicking their butt. I mean, the Chiefs didn't really kick our butt, but I just grew up there, and Chief fans were always talking smack like they were good whenever they weren't. Um, but anyway, yeah, I
But I
the
mean,
whole
Eddie,
franchise.
like the thing with Nick Wright, I'm like, you're an analyst, you can't be that biased, but he can't hide it. His
He can't
hate for the
handle it. No,
Broncos. Yeah,
no. And Mike coming back in here again with another comment. Let me see if I can get it up here. Yep. I don't bet, but I know that we're going up to play. We're not punks. Yeah. We will show up. I believe this team will show up 100% next week against the Bills. Um, I think Sean Payton is going to literally lay everything out on the table.
I agree.
We're probably going to come up short, possibly. I mean, the Bills are the best, in my opinion, they're the best team in the AFC right now. They're better
On
than
paper,
the Chiefs,
yeah, on
you
paper they're
know.
better.
So I'm not going to sit here and say, "Oh yeah, we're going to go up there and just kick the," it's going to be an easy game. We're just going to, hang with the Bills and just beat them. If we do win that game, it's going to be a hard fought win for us. Like we're going to have to earn it. The Bills are no joke. I think they're on a tear this year. They want to make the Super Bowl. They want to win it this year. So it's going to be a tough game. But I wanted to get into some stats here, Mohammed. First thing I wanted to get into and get your thoughts on was Bo Nix. Bo Nix today went 26 of 29 for 321 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. What are your thoughts on that?
Just almost perfect, Eddie. Like, he only dropped like what, three balls that didn't, something like that. That's
Yeah,
just crazy. That is crazy. And he did pass Peyton Manning, I guess, right? As far as the completion rate.
he did.
Just,
Bo Nix is now the leader in completion percentage for the Denver Broncos. He surpassed Peyton Manning today.
just I don't like
Another record for the
the way
rookie.
things started, Eddie. Like where Bonex started to now, just crazy. Like I cannot believe we're just talking about all these stats right now.
Yeah,
It's
I believe Bo Nix's completion percentage today was 89 point, I think 3 or 4 or something like that, which is better than the completion percentage Peyton Manning ever had here. So he has the best completion percentage in Broncos history, Bo Nix as a rookie. He surpassed John Elway's win total from his rookie season. So Bo Nix is just breaking all kinds of records for the Broncos. Um,
just getting
but
started too. Eddie.
huh?
I said we're just getting started.
Oh yeah,
Just
definitely. But let's go over some more stats here. In the passing game today, um, these were the numbers for each receiver, and these are all the receivers that caught balls, or all the players that caught balls today. Cortland Sutton had 5 receptions for 98 yards, 1 touchdown. Devon Bailey had 4 for 50 with 1 touchdown. Jaleel had 2 receptions for 9 yards. Javante had 3 receptions for 50 yards. Lil Jordan Humphrey, two receptions for 26 yards. Marvin Mims, 5 receptions, 51 yards, and 2 touchdowns for Marvin Mims today. Um, and I believe, and then Nate Atkins, 3 receptions, 25 yards. Troy Franklin, 2 receptions for 12 yards. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players caught passes today. Bo Nix was spreading the wealth around today out there. So, what are your thoughts on that, Mohammed?
I mean, it was just crazy, Eddie. Like Bonex was like, "Oh, Sutton, you want the ball? No problem. Here you go. Vele, you want the ball?" Like he was just hitting them all, and the way he was throwing the ball, the way how he was like all comfortable, and this chemistry that I mean, it did take a while for it to build. We were kind of getting frustrated as the season progressed, but look at us now. And Mims is just incredible. And I mean, Sean Payton has figured out what to do with Mims because he was being written off, right? Like he's a bust and all this stuff. But I mean, look at him now, Eddie.
Yeah.
He's a weapon. Like I mean,
Oh, yeah. I especially like it when he uses him out of the backfield, man. Teams
yeah,
don't know how to defend that. Sean Payton,
exactly.
I think we're going to see a lot of that next week in Buffalo. And also,
Ooh,
guys, if you guys are in here, please get your comments in so we can get them in and get your comments up on the screen and talk about them. But also going to the rushing stats, this one was pretty awesome. The Broncos had 158 yards rushing today. Um, Audric estimated 12 attempts for 34 yards and a touchdown. Bo Nix had 7 attempts for 47 yards. Jaleel had 16 for 39. Stidham had 2 for 7. Javante had 5 for 28. Michael Burton had 1 for 3. A total of, like I said, 158 yards on the ground. In total, the Broncos offense today had a total of 479 offensive yards. What are your thoughts on that, Mohammed?
That's crazy. That is crazy. I mean, the fact that we ran the ball, like 100, almost 150 yards.
158.
Yeah, 58 on the ground. I mean, that's the balance that we've been talking about. I mean, run it. If you run the ball and play good defense, you are gonna win. I mean, especially coming up, with the playoffs. I mean, that's that's what you're supposed to do. You know, as long as Vance Joseph does not play zone.
I'm
That, that's
100% with
that's
you
what I'm
on that.
scared
That
of.
drives
Like
me nuts.
against the Bills, Eddie. Like he's gonna be like, oh, I know
Yeah,
what he's gonna do. We know what he's going to do, right? I mean,
he just needs to play man. Riley Moss has been back for 2 weeks now. You need to play
exactly.
man. Riley Moss has settled in. Let him go out there, do his thing. Let Sertan do his thing and, get through that. But we got a few more comments here from Michael. He came in and said, oh, wait, sorry. I missed one. They can't help who they play. They just have to be TCOB, and they did just that. Muhammad, can you decipher what TCOB stands for? If not, Michael, let us know in the comments because I'm not sure exactly what that means. Um, but yeah,
Take care
they
of
just
business. Take care of
okay,
business.
take care of business. Okay.
I'm so
Um,
smart, Eddie. Can't help myself.
uh, but yeah, they do. They got to do what they got to do. Just go out there and just play your brand of football. I understand next week it's going to be a big game. Like, honestly, these last 2 weeks, I mean, hell, you can even go back as far as the Colts game. The Colts game was a big game for the Broncos. That was a playoff implication game, if you ask me. That was, them, winning that game, pretty much getting the first winning season since 2016. The Chargers game to help, lock up a playoff berth. They didn't really win that, but it didn't seem like it was too big for them. Same with last week against the Bengals. That was to lock up the playoffs. It didn't seem like it was too big for them. Today, once again, yeah, it was against backups, but this was a high stakes game. This was a playoff game today for the Broncos. It was pretty much you win, you're in. You lose, you're out. It's no different than the playoffs.
High
You
stakes.
lose,
Yeah,
you're out of the playoffs. You win, you
exactly.
keep going. So I think next week's game is not going to be that big for this team. I think they'll be able to handle it. Now, the problem I think is going to be, we talked about it a little bit, is Vance Joseph playing too much zone coverage. Sean Payton maybe getting a little too cute, and the Bills just having an overall better roster is
Yeah.
what's going to cause the Broncos to lose next week if that's the case. So, but moving on to the next comment, another one from Michael here. He says, "It's the playoffs, but baby, anything can happen." I agree. Like, all the coaches talk about it. You punch your ticket to the playoffs, anything's possible. Anything can happen. Once again, I'm going to refer back to that 98 Broncos team. They made it in as the last seed, and the ball and everything went their way, and they made it to the Super Bowl, and they beat the Packers. That's exactly, anything can happen. Um, so what are your thoughts with this, Mohammed?
Absolutely. I mean, I know Sean Payton is going to have the team ready to go. Vance Joseph, on the other hand, that's what scares me. But as far as Sean Payton, the team's going to be ready. It's not going to be, even if the Bills win, Eddie, they're not going to make it easy. The Broncos are not just going to, let them win like that. It's going to be a hard game for both, I
Oh
think.
yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Everybody, get your comments in, please, so we can go through them tonight. If you're watching, please get the comments in. Got another one here from Michael. It says Steelers won by playing awesome defense. Look how many field goals they have to settle for. Yeah, the Steelers won by playing awesome defense. I understand that, but as Bronco fans, we should know that even having one of the top 3 defenses in the league, if your offense doesn't score points, you're probably not going to win many games. Like we've had a top 10, top 5, top 3 defense a lot in the past 9 years since the last time we made the playoffs and won the Super Bowl. And we didn't have a capable quarterback and it or a capable offense in general, and we couldn't win those games. Like we just could not put up enough points. Like I believe that and this defense this year, like I believe it is good. The numbers do say one thing, but sometimes like you watch the game and we've just said it, Muhammad, like Vance Joseph, stop playing so much freaking zone. You're getting cooked worse in zone than you ever do in man. Even if your corner gets beat by like a couple of yards in man coverage down the field for a big play, like that's nothing compared to what I see whenever they play zone. Like there's always a part of the field that's just wide open. Zone, you should have guys looking at the quarterback, keeping parts of that field, every part of the field covered. At least has someone in that vicinity that is there close to where, yeah, they might pick up a first down, they might get an extra couple of yards after catch, but there's going to be somebody there to make a tackle. There's so many times this year I've seen this team play zone defense, and a guy is running wide open, nobody within 10 yards around him, and the guy's picking up freaking like 30, 40 yards down the field. It's like, what are we doing? You know? So, yeah, good defense helps, but you have to be able to score points. What are your thoughts, Mohammed?
Absolutely, Eddie. I do think that Sean Payton's probably going to have a conversation with Vance Joseph about this plan. I mean, even if things are now, here's my problem, Eddie. If things are not working on the first half, make some freaking adjustments on the second half. You know, that's the problem. Like you're doing something and it's not working. Change it. Not keep doing the same thing. That's just insane. You know. Um,
Yeah, that. How
how
many times
about
have we been on the podcast screaming and pulling our hair out like Vance, make some adjustments. Play a whole game of foot or coach a whole game of football, not just a half. you know.
I mean, and he's not like he's a good defensive coordinator, but I don't know what happens to him sometimes, Eddie. You know,
I,
playing all
I
these
I
zones.
think he just gets comfortable and he's just sitting there and he gets comfortable thinking, oh, I got reading his own press clippings like, oh, I got this great defense, and then he just kind of goes away and um, just doesn't do what the defense is good at. So, but we got another thing here from Michael. Bo Nix has been on a roll. He's not going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, but he's worthy for sure. I agree. But here's the sad thing about that, Michael, and I'm not sitting here saying I agree with it, is that Bo Nix has had a really, really good year. He's had some incredible numbers, but the Offensive Rookie of the Year, just like the MVP, like the team has to be winning. Like Joe Burrow, like they're talking about Joe Burrow getting MVP. No, he's not. They're not in the playoffs. Like they got a winning record, but they're not in the playoffs. That's like the team all around has to be really good, and the team has to be in the playoffs for that player to make or get an MVP. Same with Offensive Rookie of the Year. Yeah, our team's in the playoffs. We're really good, but Jaden Daniels and the um, Commanders, they got a better record. They're sitting at a higher seed, and it's just the way the nature of the beast is. Like I hate to say it, I think Bo Nix should be right up there with him, but it's not going to happen. So, what are your thoughts, Mohammed?
I agree, Eddie, but I don't get this obsession with the Bengals, Eddie. Like, what is it? They're not good this year. I mean, they're getting hot towards the end, but they're not going to the playoffs. I'm sorry. I mean, I know the media wanted that to happen, but it's just not happening. You know,
Yeah,
as far
we'll
as
get into
the year, I think it's going to be Jaden Daniels. I mean, the kid
yeah,
deserves it. So
we'll get into the Bengals here in a second. But another one from Michael here says I do have to say the Chiefs laid down. I wouldn't say they laid down. I mean, it was our starters against their backups, but once again, I said earlier, they still get paid. They're still football players, and I guarantee you, Andy Reid is reaming them right now, saying, "You guys at least should have scored something,
yeah, they
got
didn't play
some
for
kind of
0.
points."
Yeah, no
You
way.
know, so even with your backups in playing against somebody's starters, the head coach is not going to tolerate that. He expects that team to go out there and at least try. Yeah, their play calling was very vanilla tonight, but even still, like Andy Reid towards the end there, he really started changing things up. He started using a little bit more motion, looking like he was trying to get a little tricky. Like you should have done something. I mean, I was expecting the Chiefs to at least get 7, if not at least 3, something. You know, even with them playing their backup some vanilla play calling, Andy Reid and the Chiefs, I expect them to get something, at least some kind of points. That's just me. But the next thing I wanted to touch on, Mohammed, is I want to go over Bo Nix's stats for the 2024 season. And this is from Zach Stevens of DMVR. He posted this on Twitter earlier. Uh, Bo Nix's fantastic rookie season: a 10-7 record, a 66.3 completion percentage, 3,775 passing yards, 29 passing touchdowns, 12 INTs, 93.3 passer rating, 24 sacks, which I believe is one of the lowest in the NFL, if I remember right. If he's not the least sack quarterback in the NFL, I can't remember who the number one is. 430 rushing yards, 4 rushing touchdowns, a receiving touchdown, 34 total touchdowns, a playoff berth. The Broncos have found their franchise QB. Your thoughts, Mohammed?
I agree 1000%. Anybody who disagrees is just insane, Eddie. I mean,
They're a hater.
yeah, I mean, at this point, I don't really expect anybody in Broncos country to be saying anything negative about Bo Nix. I mean, he's the franchise quarterback. You know, Sean Payton is just looking like a genius right now. Seriously, like all the stuff that's been said about Bo Nix coming out of the draft, and look at him now going to the playoffs. All these records that he's setting, and he's just getting started, Eddie, with no
Yep.
real talent on the team. So sky's the limit, man. Hey, we got our guy, we got our coach, the ownership. We're good to go. We're back.
And
Back.
a couple things I wanted to bring up on that was one of the big things is this quarterback class from 2024. Honestly, I'm not gonna get too far ahead of my skis, but I can honestly say this could possibly be the best quarterback class in NFL history. Maybe outside of the 83 quarterback class with like John Elway, Dan Marino, and all them guys. Like Jade Daniels looks like a stud. Bo Nix is looking like a stud. Caleb Williams, like, yeah, the Bears didn't really have a great season, but he looked okay. And I think once they get the right head coach in there, he's going to be a stud. Drake May looked good in his starts this year. Michael Penix actually looked decent. Like, that's 5 out of the 6. And JJ McCarthy, I mean, we'll have to find out. Who knows? Like, I've seen a lot of talk about, with Sam Darnold playing the way he's playing, in Minnesota, they might just sign Sam Darnold and they might trade JJ McCarthy. Like what do the Vikings do in that at that point? Like, they're in the playoffs. They're playing right now for the number 1 seed in the NFC and home playoff positioning. If they win tonight and the Vikings get the 1 seed and Sam Darnold playing like he has this year, they can't, in good conscience, get rid of Sam Darnold. They can't. And if they do decide to move on from him and keep JJ, I would franchise tag him and I would trade him to somebody for a buttload of picks because somebody will pay a high price for Sam Darnold, I think, at this point now. But I think the Vikings might keep him. And there was somebody talking about, the Vikings trading JJ McCarthy. It's like you can't have 2 quarterbacks like that on your roster. Like,
I mean,
what are your thoughts
on him for another year, Eddie? I mean, even you just sit behind Sam Darnold for another year and then decide. I wouldn't, but hey, one of those teams that are quarterback needy might say, hey, we'll give you 2 or 3 first round picks. Yeah.
If a team walks up to the Vikings and says, hey, we'll give you 2 firsts for JJ McCarthy, hell, even if they said we'll give you a first and a second for JJ McCarthy, I would take it. Especially if you got Sam Darnold and like after this season's over, they got to make a decision because they only signed him to a 1-year, $10 million deal. They got to make a decision on him before free agency. And honestly, the Vikings, in my opinion, would be really stupid if they didn't do 1 or 2 things. If they were going to keep Sam, sign him to a long-term deal. Either do that or franchise tag him and trade him, and someone's going to give you picks for him. I guarantee you that. If they don't do one of those 2 things, the Vikings are stupid, in my opinion, because they don't have I think they got like a first rounder and like 3/5 is all they have this year. So they would be stupid not to try to get picks out at least one of those guys.
Eddie,
Um,
do you know when the Raiders like when are they picking? Like, is it fourth or fifth? Because I know the
um,
Tennessee got the first overall, right?
hang on, I got it right here. The the top picks right now in the 2025 draft is the Titans are at 1, Cleveland at 2, Giants at 3, New England at 4, Jacksonville at 5, Raiders are at 6. So you got three quarterback needy teams and the Titans, the Browns, and the Giants sitting the top three picks in the draft. Like 1, 2, 3. And there's only two first round QBs in this draft this year, Shador and I think Cam Ward. Those two are going to be gone by the time the Raiders pick it. So unless the Raiders trade up, which I doubt the Browns or Titans are going to trade out of those first two picks,
No, they want quarterbacks too.
your best bet would be to call the Vikings as Raiders and be like, hey, what do you want for Sam Darnold or what do you want for JJ McCarthy? Whoever you're not keeping, what do you want for him? I mean, I don't think the Raiders are going to do that because I think they're a stupid ass organization, but you know, they got to do something because they're not going to be able to draft a quarterback. They're not going to be able to.
They're gonna probably
But
fire their coach, Eddie. It's gonna be happening
did
soon.
you see that Gerard Mayo got fired today?
Yeah, I was actually kind of sad for that one. To be
I
honest with
was
you.
like, that was so stupid. He beat the Buffalo Bills,
I know, man. It's like
and you
it's first.
fired him.
That's not his fault, man. I mean, man, it's
But we got another comment here from Michael. Sorry, I already had that one up. I totally agree. The Bills are loaded with talent, but all I can say is we'll see. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. We'll just see. Like I said, I got to see the injury report, how the week plays out. What day the game's on, the weather conditions. Like I just want to see. I heard next week at the Broncos when the Broncos play the Bills, it's supposed to be snowing up there, which for the Broncos ain't no big deal. Like they get snow out here in Denver all the time. So, but if that's the case, if it's a very heavy snow game, I would expect both teams to run the ball a lot next week.
I would love that,
So
Eddie. That's gonna be a lot of fun if it's just heavy snow. Yeah,
if that's the case, it's probably gonna be a really low scoring game. I would say probably like 13-10
Broncos.
if it's really snowing up there. Uh, Michael coming back in with another comment. He said, "Let's see the adage: the offense gets you to the playoffs, defense wins you championships." Plays out. Yeah, but in this playoffs, I have to say, Mike, you still have to score points. Like I just said, the game next week could be close only because of the weather. But I still believe, like, if you go up against the Chiefs or the Bills or the Ravens, your offense is going to have to put up some points in those games in order to win. The defense, yeah, I think the defense is going to be key in all those games. True, because it's going to be cold weather in Baltimore, in Kansas City, or Buffalo. But your offense is still going to have to put up points. At least I would say for the Broncos to win a Buffalo next week, I would say they would probably have to put up at least 13 to at least 2 touchdowns. They're going to have to put up. If not 2 touchdowns and a field goal, they're going to have to put up next week in Buffalo. And the Buffalo defense is no joke either. What are your thoughts, Mohammed?
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to score more than 20 points, Eddie. If we're trying to win. Um,
It's
because I
possible.
know I know they're gonna be scoring some points, so just to compete.
Michael in here again with another comment. He's like, I think the Broncos just out and end the Bengals. Or what? I think the Broncos just out and ended to the Bengals playoff hopes. I think he meant to say that I think the Broncos just ended the Bengals playoff hopes. Yeah, well, that was over before. Like they ended everybody's playoff hopes. Like the Broncos had to lose today for Miami or the Bengals. I think the Dolphins and the Broncos had to lose today for the Bengals to get in. And the Broncos would have had the loss today, and Miami would have had the one today for Miami to get in. Like, it didn't matter if the Dolphins won. It didn't matter that if the Dolphins would have won today, it wouldn't have mattered if the Bengals won yesterday, which they did. If the
They
Broncos
needed the
won, if the
Broncos
Broncos
to
won,
lose.
they're in.
Yeah.
They're 10-7. Bengals are 9-8, and the Dolphins they would have been 9-8. So it really wouldn't have mattered in that aspect. So, but get your comments in, guys. We got a few more things to go over, but the next big thing I wanted to talk about, Mohammed, and this honestly just made me laugh to my core. is I've been seeing a lot yesterday, and I've seen it a lot this morning before the Broncos played. The national media. What a freaking joke. They were crying, I mean, literally bitching about the fact that it's not fair that Joe Burrow and the Bengals don't get to get into the playoffs and the Broncos do because they get to play the Chiefs backups and they're going to just get in. And it's not fair to the Bengals. Then maybe the Bengals should have won more games, plain and simple. Like, what? It's just the narrative of they want Joe Burrow, they want Lamar Jackson, they want Josh Allen, they want Patrick Mahomes, they want C.J. Stroud, Justin Herbert. They want these top shelf quarterbacks or what they consider, great quarterbacks in the playoffs. They don't want to see a rookie in Bo Nix in the playoffs. And to me, it's just laughable. Like, if the Bengals wanted to make the playoffs, they should have won more. They shouldn't have waited until the end of the season to start winning to try to make the playoffs and have to rely on the Broncos and Dolphins to lose. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Eddie, I agree with you, man. I mean, I honestly don't get it. Like, the beginning of the season, I understand they had some issues with us picking Bo Nix at 12. It was supposed to be a second round pick as far as they were concerned. But I mean, after seeing this kid just develop and win all these games, and it's just incredible accomplishments. You still have an issue with it? Like, I don't get it, Eddie. Like, I don't know what it is, like when that narrative is gonna change. I mean, we made the playoffs. Is it gonna change next season, the season after that? I don't know, Eddie. I honestly don't care. They say whatever they want to say. Just got to keep winning. You know.
I just, I know what it is. Like, we all know what it is. This is a quarterback driven league. Like, in the past, I'd say 10 to 15 years, actually, maybe even 20 if you want to go farther back to like 2004. Um, the rules and everything have been driven more towards the quarterback. Like, you can't touch a quarterback. You can't, look at him funny. You can't freaking do anything to a quarterback without getting flagged 15 yards. This is a quarterback driven league. And people pay money to go to games to watch the offense put up points and watch the quarterbacks. Every team wants to have their franchise QB. Every team wants to watch their franchise QB and their offense put up a buttload of points on the other team. That's the narrative. It's a franchise quarterback driven league. And the fact that Joe Burrow is not in the playoffs, the national media is pissed. They're just like, why the heck is Bo Nix and the Broncos in the playoffs and not Joe Burrow? Because they were not good enough. And that's okay. They were talking about it for the year. They talk about it every year. They're like, oh, they do it every year. Every season before the season starts, they say, oh, well, this team has high expectations and, a team that didn't make the playoffs the year before, be like, well, this team I think can sneak into the playoffs, but there's going to be a team from the previous year that made the playoffs. That can't make the playoffs this year for this team to make the playoffs. Well, this year it just happened to be the Bengals didn't make the playoffs, and the Broncos did. That's just the nature of the beast. Now next year it could be, should I say, oh, maybe it's going to be one of the top contenders in the playoff or in the AFC. Oh, the Chiefs might take a step back, or the Bills, or the Ravens, or the Texans. Like, oh, say the Ravens, oh, they're not going to make the playoffs next year. There's going to be some team, say, I'm just going to throw one out there. Let's just say the Steelers. Say they go out and they go, well, not the Steelers because they made the playoffs this year. I'm trying to think of a team. Let's just say the Jets, just hypothetically, they get a good head coach. They go out and they get their, young guy, and people are, and they still have the good defense and the weapons and everything and a good head coach. People are like, oh, the Jets are going to make the, playoffs this year. But, everybody's, some people are picking them to go. But it's like, well, what team are you taking out of the AFC playoffs from last year for the Jets to make it? Oh, the Ravens, they won't make it this year because they took a step back, or the Bills or whatever. Like, that's just the way it is every year. They do that every year. This year, it just happened to be the Bengals didn't make it and the Broncos did. So that's just the nature of the beast. What are your thoughts, Mohammed?
Absolutely, Eddie. I think it's all business too, Eddie. It's the NFL, the ratings and stuff. They wanted to see Joe Burrow, go against another quarterback. I think that's what it is. It's probably just money. That's what everything.
We got a Steelers fan in here right now. Pickens 14 go. What's up, man? He says go Steelers. Hey, I was rooting for you guys yesterday. I wanted you to beat the Bengals to keep them out of our, I just wanted you to eliminate them so we didn't have to worry about them. And honestly, I want to get your thoughts on this, Pickens. Uh, Let me know in the comments. Are you one of the Steeler fans that are like, out on Russell Wilson? Do you think that he's washed, like he's taking too many sacks, he hangs on to the ball too long? Because I've heard a lot of Steelers, podcasts over the last day talk about, how they don't want Russ anymore. They rather go to um Justin Fields, honestly, because Russ is just hanging on to the ball too long. He's not, reading the middle of the field. He's taking too many sacks. Let me know in the comments below, Pickens at 14 GOAT. But yeah, I don't get it either. Well, I do get it, but it's just like it's so frustrating. Like next year, what's it going to be? Like this team, the Broncos team, made the playoffs in year one with an $85 million dead cap with a rookie quarterback that nobody expected to do anything this year. They thought he was going to be the worst quarterback in this draft class. In all honesty, he's the second best in this draft class, and so far this year. And with a rookie quarterback, the biggest dead cap in NFL history, with not a whole lot of talent on the roster, what do you think this team's going to do next year when they get a full offseason with all their draft picks and money in their pocket to spend in free agency and actually go out and get some talented players? And players are probably going to want to come here and be able to get some, good players through the draft. Like, we got all of our draft picks this year. And George Payton is a draft genius, in my opinion.
We got money too.
To find talent. Him and Sean Payton together, they're going to find talent in this draft. Honestly, I'm going to say it now. This team is going to be competing against the Chiefs next year and the Chargers for the division.
Absolutely.
If they nail this offseason, they will be competing for the division next year. What are your thoughts, Mohammed?
Yeah, I mean, Eddie, I was after our game, I was watching the Raiders game against the Chargers. I was just looking at Brock Powers. I was like, can you imagine if you gave Bo Nix Brock Powers, Eddie? Just that would have been crazy. You give him a tight end like that? I mean, right now, Eddie, like for me, wide receivers, yes, we do need a wide receiver, but tight end, I think, is number one.
Tight end and running back are definitely the top two on the list this offseason, in my opinion. And honestly, I've been watching a lot of mock drafts lately. The mock drafts I've been watching, the majority of them are talking about the Broncos taking, I think his name's Corson Loveland or whatever, or Corson Loveland, tight end. I forgot what college he's coming out of, but they're talking about the Broncos taking him with their first round pick this year. And honestly, I wouldn't hate it. I've been watching some of his highlights. He's actually pretty good. I'm not going to say he's like Brock Powers. Like, I mean, he could be, but he seems like a solid tight end. I would not be mad if the Broncos took him in the first round this year. But we got another comment here from our buddy DeAndre Weatherspoon. He said, Broncos are playoff bound. Hell yes, they are.
What's
for
up,
the first time in 9 years. So, Bronco fans, tonight, we can all sleep comfortably and happily knowing the Broncos are in the playoffs. So,
Eddie, I told my son like 6 times. Every time I went to the living room, I'd be like, hey, we're going to the playoffs. I just can't believe it, Eddie. Long time coming.
I know. I was jumping around like probably the last like 2 minutes of that game. I mean, dude, honestly, you probably say the last 8 minutes of that game. We knew we were going to win. It was just a matter of what the final score was going to be. We were up 38-0. I'm like, yeah, there's no way we're losing this game. Like, what's the final score going to be? Is it going to be 38-3, 38-7, 38-10? But I digress on that. We got another comment here from Michael Ronquillo. The Denver Broncos and the Washington Commanders rookie quarterbacks Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels led their NFL teams into the NFL playoffs as rookie quarterbacks. Yes, they did. That's what I'm saying. I think Jaden Daniels is the number one rookie quarterback and Bo Nix is number 2. Like, now, you can sit here and say, oh, well, what about Drake May? Like, I would understand the Drake May stuff and even the Michael Penix stuff a little bit because those guys both didn't play the entire season. I think Drake May came in like, week 10 or week 11 or something. I like that. Michael Penix, I think he started like week 16 or week 15. And Caleb Williams, like I still think Caleb Williams is going to be good. I just think he needs the right coaching staff. But even with that, he still had, out of all the rookie quarterbacks that came out this year, he had the best weapons. He had, what was it, Keenan Allen. He had Aroma Dunze. He had DJ Moore. He had DeAndre Swift, Cole Kmet. He had 5 really good weapons, and they didn't do anything with those. Bo Nix only had basically Cortland Sutton. He had no tight end. He had no running back. Marvin Mims really didn't start shining until midway through the season. Same with Devon Vele. You could say Jaden Daniels, he had Scary Terry. He had a great running back. He had Zach Ertz, which was a solid tight end. He had Dotson, I believe, as another receiver. Drake May, I mean, you can make a case for him. Like I said, he didn't start the whole season, but he really didn't have a whole lot of weapons either and still played pretty damn good. So what are your thoughts for Michael there, Mohammed?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's crazy. If you had told people at the beginning of the season that this was going to be the case, nobody would have believed you, Eddie. You know, definitely not Bo Nix. But hey, I'm glad, Eddie. Like I'm. It's like a surreal moment for me that we actually finally made the playoffs. I knew we were going against the backups, but I was still kind of nervous. I'm like, please, let's just win. Let's go to the playoffs. I don't care what happened after
And the
that.
playoff drought.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, hey, we beat the Raiders too this season. I mean, Eddie.
Because I didn't want, like, I was thinking in my mind before this game, Mohammed, I was like, man, this is going to be a long process. And you might think, what are you talking about, Eddie? I'm like, last year we didn't really, I mean, we went 8-9. Did we have our first? No. We went 8-9. We won 8 games. We got rid of Russ. I was like, this year it's just gonna be about the winning season. Like, let's just get a winning season. A lot of people were happy with that, going above 5 wins and getting the first winning season in years. And then it was like, okay, well, let's get to double digits. Once you got the 9 wins, you're like, let's get to double digits. Let's get 10 wins. And granted, you hit that today, but it's like, I didn't want it to be like this year you get a winning season, next year you get double digit wins and make the playoffs. Like, I didn't want to drag it out for another year. I wanted to get that, off of our backs. Like, hey, we got the winning season and we made the playoffs all in one, the same year. So now next year, like I said, we build this roster, we can focus on winning the division. We've already beaten the Chargers. Yeah, we need to beat them next year, but we broke so many records over the last year. Last year we beat the Chiefs for the first time in 8 years. This year, we beat the Raiders in Allegiant Stadium and finally beat them after, years of losing to them. You finally have a winning record and you make the playoffs. You do that all within 2 years. Now, next year, you ain't got to focus on that kind of stuff. You can focus on winning the division next year, competing with the Chiefs and the Chargers. So now next year, to me, depending on how this offseason goes, which I believe it'll go really, really well, the sky is a limit. The number 1 seed, honestly, in my opinion, with the way this team is going and the division could be very well in play for this Broncos team. What are your thoughts, Mohammed?
Absolutely, Eddie. And Eddie, thinking about the playoffs, it doesn't matter, Eddie, win or lose. This team is gonna get some playoff experience. That's really important.
Yep.
It's not gonna be something new for them. This is gonna be something that they've experienced. So, and this is how good teams are built. You have to get that experience. Going to the playoffs. Seeing how it is, and is it going to be too big for the Broncos? All the team.
Yeah.
All the players. All that. So that's really important too. But yeah, Eddie. I mean, just the possibilities for this team is crazy.
And the last thing I want to say before we get out of here tonight, Mohammed, is I am so excited. Like, after years of searching through the quarterback desert, of searching through the head coaching desert, every year not knowing, wondering, like, talk about having to fire a head coach and just finally start fresh, or, hopefully finally drafting our franchise QB. The Broncos have done both. They found their franchise head coach for the next 10 years. They found their franchise quarterback for the next 15 years. Honestly, I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I ain't got to work. I'm off. I get to sit around and watch all these, really, I hate to say it, not really, because it's finally nice it's not us, bum ass teams have to fire their head coaches and go through this hell of trying to find their next head coach and their quarterback. Finally knowing the Broncos have their guys in place. Like, it's a sigh of relief, in my opinion, that I ain't got to wake up tomorrow worrying about if Sean Payton's going to get fired, focusing on the draft now, worrying about, if we're going to be able to find our franchise guy. Both those things are done for the Broncos. Now I get to watch the Patriots. I get to watch the Bears. I get to watch the Jets, the Saints, possibly the Raiders, and all these horrible teams go through that misery that the Broncos had to deal with for the last 9 years. It's finally over for us, and I get to watch other teams suffer. Wanted to get your thoughts on that, Muhammad. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Eddie, I didn't even think about that, Eddie. I mean, this is what it's been like for us. Like the end of the season, who's gonna get fired? Who are we gonna draft? Who's gonna be our quarterback? Who's gonna get cut? My God, man, I'm glad we don't have to deal with that anymore. Eddie.
We're
Finally,
out of that devil. We're out
exactly.
of the quarterback and coach carousel. We're out of it. We're done. We got our guys, at least all of them. Our coach and our quarterback, we have for at least the next 10 years.
We're just getting better. We're just gonna get better. That's all.
So I'm excited. I'm happy. But we do have one more comment before we get out of here tonight, Mohammed. From Michael. He says quarterback Bo Nix ran around the entire Empower Field at Mile High Stadium, high fives all the Broncos countries to show them. Yeah, he's excited. Like I don't even know what to say. Like he's pumped. He's excited. He took it dead. Him and Sean Payton took it dead franchise and got him back into the playoffs. So I wish I almost went to the game today, honestly. A buddy of mine invited me. It's just I wasn't sure if I was going to be sick or not still with my, stone that I had. So I really didn't go. I was just like, I'm not committing to nothing. But Muhammad, any final thoughts before we get out of here tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to thank everybody that commented and joined us on the show and stuff. But hey, Eddie, like I said, man, this is a big accomplishment for the Broncos. Winning 10 games and then going to the playoffs. What happens after that, I honestly don't care, Eddie. You know,
Yeah.
this is a milestone for us. And like I said, man, sky's the limit. Next season, we have our picks, we got the money, we're gonna be good to go, Eddie.
Yep. Like I said, like I'm not giving away my stuff yet. I'm happy we made the playoffs. This is what I wanted. I wanted to be able to be like say, at least we broke the playoff drought. We beat, not having a winning record, or we, shattered that, everything of that's all the stuff I want to accomplish this year. Like I'm not saying I want the Broncos to lose next week. Of course I want them to win. I want them to continue their season. I want them to go to the Super Bowl just like any Broncos fan. But also, I'm going to be realistic and know that the Broncos are probably not going to make the Super Bowl this year. I mean, like I said, wilder things have happened. It's possible. But the fact that they made the playoffs, they exceeded my expectations for this year. And I'm excited. I can't wait to watch that Buffalo Bills game. I'm sure even watching it next week, I'm probably going to be pulling a lot of my hair out. Like just watching it, like I said, it's going to be a tough game. And I'm not saying we're going to win or lose yet. I'll give my predictions. We'll give our predictions later in the week. Yeah. But it's going to be a rough game for the Broncos. But like you said, as long as they get that learning experience, that's all I can ask for at that point. So, but thank you everybody for joining us tonight. Thanks for getting all your guys' comments in. We'll be back in a couple of days, like I said, to give our predictions for the Bills and Broncos game after, the injury reports and everything come out. But Muhammad, great having you back in town, man. And Broncos are in the playoffs. Let's go. So we will talk to you guys next week. Thanks for watching. Talk to you guys later. Peace.